Well, thank you, Johnny, and it's great to be back in Manchester, although I'll let you into a secret. The last time I gave a speech in this hall, I was heckled from the floor, the microphone cut out, and the auto cue failed. But that, of course, was under a coalition government. This is the 32nd consecutive party conference that I've attended, and finally, my first as a minister in a proper Conservative government. Let me start by introducing my fantastic Foreign Office team. Our ministers, David Lidington, Hugo Swire, Francis Maud, Joyce Annelly, Grant Shapps, Tobias Elwood, and James Studridge. Our whips, George Hollingbury and Patrick Cortown, and our hard-working PPSs, Chris Pincher, James Morris, and Pauline Latham. Please give them a big round of applause. I've got to say, it's disappointing that Britain has had to wait until the third week of the conference season for a grown-up discussion about the future of our country. And I want you, if you would, just to spare a thought for our friends in the media who've done the rounds. Last week, the 80s revival gig in Brighton. The week before, it was the party in a phone box in Bournemouth. But this week, we are going to show the British people what a real party of government looks like, setting out serious policies, delivering the national security and the economic security the British people want. By the way, we generally find, however old-fashioned it may seem, that having just one policy on a given issue, which we all share, works pretty well, and I could thoroughly recommend it to others. I'll tell you something else we're going to do this week. We are going to expose the risks that Labour poses to that security. Last week, the Prime Minister and I went to the United Nations in New York to deliver a clear message. With a Conservative government in office, Britain is back, playing its rightful role on the world stage. And in the months since the general election, we're already delivering. Concluding the deal with Iran to avert the nightmare of a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, raising the Union flag over our reopened embassy in Tehran, another city where Britain is back in business. British troops taking part in African peacekeeping once again. Our diplomatic network engaged around the world to deliver a climate change deal in Paris in December. The second biggest contribution after the US to the humanitarian crisis in Syria. Britain supporting refugees to stay in the region so that they can be part of building the new Syria when Assad is gone. And let's not forget the EU referendum bill, published, as we promised, in the very first week of this Parliament, sending a clear message that Britain expects a fair deal that delivers genuine and irreversible change in Europe. A deal... It's got to be a deal that will stand up to the toughest scrutiny of all, the verdict of the British people in that referendum. And in the summer budget, George Osborne gave the clearest possible signal of our commitment to Britain's engagement in the world and to our national security, with the pledge that this Conservative government will meet the 2% target for defence spending, backing our fantastic armed forces with a real terms increase in the defence budget in every year of this Parliament. That makes Britain the only major country in the world which is meeting the international targets both on defence and on overseas aid. Our commitment to our national security underwritten with hard cash. And what have Labour been doing since the election? Well, it would be funny if it wasn't so serious. So it goes like this. Having lost the election because their policies were too left-wing and their leader was too incompetent, they decided to fix the problem by electing Jeremy Corbyn. It would be funny, but it's not a laughing matter, because we now have a Labour Party which poses a serious risk to our national security. While we're strengthening our commitment to NATO, the leader of the opposition wants to pull out. Where we're backing our armed forces, he can't see any point in them. Instead of committing to our fight against terrorism, Labour's leader is embracing terrorists as friends. And while we're renewing Britain's nuclear deterrent, he wants to scrap it. Weak on terrorism, weak on defence, a threat to Britain's national security. And I ask you the question, in less than 5 years' time, would Britain contemplate a Prime Minister who would share the governance of the Falkland Islands with the Argentinians, who considers the death of Osama bin Laden, quotes, a tragedy, and who is an apologist for Russia's aggression in Ukraine? I think I can answer that question in the words of a much-loved former Prime Minister. No, no, no. But it isn't just about what may or may not happen in 5 years' time. It's about what's happening now. And in my discussions with colleagues all over the world, I fear that Labour's lurch to the left risks undermining our message that Britain is back. They see a party that was in government until 5 years ago, the official opposition of the United Kingdom, and they're asking me, what on earth is going on over there? Has the party of Attlee and Bevan taken leave of its senses? What am I supposed to tell them? Don't worry, it's just a kinder, more caring politics. Labour have done this at a time when the range of threats we face is perhaps greater than ever. ISIL's barbaric tentacles spreading from Iraq and Syria across North and West Africa. Putin's continued destabilisation of Ukraine. Assad's murderous regime in Syria and the instability in Libya, both driving a migration crisis which is threatening to overwhelm Europe. The stalled Middle East peace process, the chaos and humanitarian disaster in Yemen, and the conflicts that still afflict so much of Africa. North Korea's illegal nuclear weapons program, Russia's huge rearmament plan. All of these threats need a robust response from Britain and its allies, and none of them would get one from Labour. The range and the scale of the challenges we face demands an active foreign policy to keep the British people safe, and a Britain that engages with the world around it. A government with the backbone and the political will to use all the tools at its disposal. Our world-class diplomacy, the huge leverage of our aid budget, the soft power of our culture, our language, our institutions, and when all else fails, the hard power of our incomparable armed forces. A government that puts security before ideology and defence before dogma. This Conservative government. Of all the threats we face, ISIL represents the most immediate danger to us. With British citizens in Iraq and Syria plotting murder on our streets, and ISIL-inspired terrorists slaughtering British tourists on their sunbeds in Tunisia. Its continued existence is both a threat to our security and an affront to our humanity. We must defeat it, and we will defeat it. The UK plays a leading role in the coalition, including conducting airstrikes in Iraq, and we will go on doing so for as long as it takes. And in Syria, our message to ISIL is clear. When you threaten the lives of British citizens, there is no place to hide. Now, we have shown that we have the reach, the capability, and the determination to hunt you down. We will defeat you and your vile ideology, no matter how long it takes. And we will work with anyone who wants to join us in this struggle, including Russia. But if Russia wants to fight ISIL, it cannot at the same time support Assad. Because Assad, with his barrel bombs and his chemical weapons and his wholesale slaughter of civilians, is the recruiting sergeant for ISIL. And Russian support for him will drive the opposition in Syria into the arms of ISIL strengthening the evil that Putin says he wants to defeat. While we're talking about Russia, Britain will also continue to lead the argument in Europe for maintaining tough economic sanctions on Putin until he ends his aggression in Ukraine. And we'll do that because if we turn a blind eye to Ukraine's plight today, who knows whose turn it will be tomorrow. Standing up to Russia because our security depends on upholding international law and punishing those who breach it. Now, as Conservatives, we understand that our national security and our economic security are two sides of the same coin, both safe under a Conservative government, both threatened by Labour. Resolving our relationship with the European Union is fundamental to that economic security. Let's be quite clear. The EU is seriously in need of reform. It's too big, too bloated, and too bureaucratic. It interferes too much in our daily lives. It's been on the wrong track for decades, and it needs to change now. And we're clear about the change we want to see. We say yes to a Europe that champions and extends the single market. A multi-currency Europe of pounds, krona and forints, as well as euros. An outward-looking Europe, relentless in its pursuit of trade with the wider world. A Europe focused on growth and jobs and wealth creation. A Europe where powers flow back from Brussels rather than to it. But we say an emphatic no to business-destroying over-regulation. No to ever closer union applying to Britain. No to abuse of our welfare system. Definitely not to Britain in the euro, and never, ever to a European army. With our strong mandate from the British people at the general election, the renegotiation has begun. It's going to require some hard graft. And there will be ups and downs along the way. But we know reform is possible. Just look at what we achieved in the last Parliament. The EU budget cut for the first time in its history, with £8 billion saved for the British taxpayer. The first ever return of powers from Brussels, over 100 of them, brought back to Britain. And Britain out of the Eurozone bailouts that Labour signed us up to. So yes, the negotiations will be tough, but we will secure a deal. Because our European neighbours understand the value Britain adds to the EU, and they understand too that keeping us in the EU will require real change. A package that both addresses the British people's concerns and delivers the reform that puts Europe on course for success. Because if we're going to be part of it, we need a Europe that's fit for the 21st century. A Europe that acts as a turbocharger on the British economy, not a drag anchor. A Europe that works for Britain, not against it. Important as the EU is to British business, we have always been a nation that looks beyond our own continent. We know that for Britain to succeed in the 21st century, we have to compete across the globe. In the last Parliament, we recast the Foreign Office network, opening new missions in fast-growing markets around the world. Now we're making that network deliver for UK PLC, with British diplomats backing British business, looking to emulate across the globe the 73% increase in exports to China and the 139% increase to South Korea. As we build our economic security here at home, leading the G7 countries in economic growth, Britain has become a focus of interest for the fastest growing major economies of the world. In just 2 weeks' time, the Chinese president will visit Britain to cement the growing political, economic and cultural relationship between our two countries, the second and the fifth largest economies in the world. In November, Prime Minister Modi will visit to celebrate the growing two-way trade, investment, scientific and cultural links between Britain and India. And I'll tell you, it's no coincidence that the leaders of the world's two most populous and fast-growing economies are coming to the UK within months of the general election. Nothing could echo more clearly this government's message that Britain is open for business with the world. But we also know that trade only flourishes where there is peace between nations, where the norms of the international system are respected, and where the rule of law is upheld. I set out at the UN in New York last week Britain's commitment as a permanent member of the Security Council to uphold the rules-based international system, to challenge those who undermine it, and to strengthen the institutions that are its cornerstone. The right to self-determination lies at the heart of the UN Charter, Chapter 1, Article 1. But it's a right that's being challenged, not just in Eastern Europe or the Middle East, but in the waters around Gibraltar and in the South Atlantic too. So let me say clearly to our Spanish friends, we agree on many things, and we want to work with you in the many areas where our interests coincide. But violations of Gibraltar's territorial waters by Spanish state vessels are unlawful and inexcusable. The people of Gibraltar have an inviolable right to remain British, and we will maintain that right for as long as they wish us to. And while I'm speaking Spanish, so to speak, I've got a little piece of advice for President Kirchner of Argentina. Whatever the Labour leader says, this Conservative government will never sell out the Falkland Islanders. Less than 3 years ago, they voted almost unanimously to remain British, actually 99.8% in favour on a turnout of over 90%. A free and fair election with a majority that would make President Putin blush. The bullying and harassment to which the islanders continue to be subjected is shameful, it's counterproductive, it is wrong, and it must stop. The Falkland Islanders have every right to develop their economy, and this Conservative government will back them every step of the way. Conference, whether it's strengthening the rules-based international system, tackling threats to global security, or promoting our prosperity overseas, we have a simple message. Britain is back, walking tall on the world stage once again. An outward-looking, self-confident nation with the growth rate and the job creation and the world-class businesses that will ensure our economic security, and the investment in our armed forces and our intelligence services to ensure our national security. Safeguarding our people by standing up against ISIL, against Russian aggression, and against extremism around the globe. Keeping our promise to renegotiate our relationship with Europe and to let the British people decide. So while Labour lurched to the left in disarray, we Conservatives must stay firmly on the common ground of British politics, delivering the things that matter to the British people. A strong economy, a stable government, and a secure country. Opportunity for all our people and a better future for Britain. Thank you.